Hey guys, I got an interesting one for you today. This is the Kershaw Mini Mojito, previously known as the Mini Mojo, model number 1800. There was a naming conflict with Kershaw when they named it the Mini Mojo, so they had to rename it the Mini Mojito. And this is a very small knife. It's a Kenyan design. We'll do some quick specs just so you can get a general idea of where this fits. And since it is a recurve, I wanted to use recurves to do my comparisons. So here it is against the bump, against the spiker, and lastly against the pilar, or the P-large, since this is the large version. So there you go, you can pretty much get the idea that this is a really small knife. Generally not something I go for when it comes to EDC knives, but I wanted this knife because it is discontinued. And since I collect discontinued Kershaw knives, um, this was important for the collection. And even though it's small, this is a really cool looking knife. I really love this design, Kenyan design. But yeah, it's just very interesting, and it's got a couple of interesting features to it that I want to talk about. That's a big reason why I wanted to review this knife. But we'll do some quick specs. So overall length of the knife is 5 and 875 inches. The blade length is 2.375 inches, and the blade thickness is 0.125 inches. The handle is 3.5 inches, while the thickness of the handle is 0.36 inches. Weight wise, it's pretty heavy for being a small knife. Comes in at 3.1 ounces. So it's a little bit more than what I would expect, but it is all stainless steel construction, so it makes sense. But even then, 3.1 ounces is kind of in that range of what you want for an EDC knife. As far as blade steel goes, this is a 440A. They did make these with 13C26 Sandvik, but my knife was made in June of 05, so they didn't start using Sandvik until July of 07. So 440A is a budget steel, not the best. It's comparable to 7CR17, but it's all right for a general EDC knife. It's got that high chromium content, which is good for wear resistance and corrosion resistance. The Rockwell hardness comes in at about 56 to 58. So again, not the hardest blade for that max edge retention, but it's still good enough for just a general EDC knife. Not too bad. It's got a drop point recurve style blade with a plain edge. The finish on this is a little confusing to me because it's not quite as satin of a finish as my other knives, but it's not like as bead blasted looking. It's kind of a mixture of both. I think it is a satin finish. It's just not as bright and shiny as what I'm used to. And the grind on the knife is a hollow grind. The handle is made of 410 stainless steel. It's got this G10 insert. It's got a lanyard hole, and the knife comes in tip down, tip up configuration, right side only. I like to keep mine in tip up for the most part. The knife also has a ambidextrous thumb studs, and it is a flipper knife. It's got this jimping up here for good control, which is gonna be necessary on a small knife. It also has this, they look kind of like saw teeth, and I believe this is jimping as well. I don't think it's just for aesthetics, but it'll be there to choke up if you need to do more precise cutting. The knife is very solid as far as lockup goes. No play at all, side to side, up or down. And the blade is centered. The tip is slightly bent, so you can probably see that there. That's how it was when I got it. I did buy this secondhand, so that's something I didn't know until after I received it. It's got a backspacer instead of standoffs. And it's got two very interesting mechanisms on the knife that make this really unique. So for one, these thumb studs aren't just thumb studs, they're actually stud locks. If you see here, there's a spring in here, and you push it forward to kind of pass this groove or this cutout notch on the handle, and then it comes around so that you can close the blade. And when opening the knife, it's got this little mechanism here, this little black part right next to the flipper tab that's built similarly. And this is actually a safety tab. So you can't open the knife unless you hit that. So you got to push down on it while pushing down on the flipper tab to engage it. And if you don't do that, then you can't open the knife. So see how I'm pushing on the side and it won't open. But if I push all the way, it opens up. So very interesting. I'll go into a little bit more detail in a minute. But I think that's something just unique and interesting that Kershaw did. They didn't ever do that safety tab again, and they only used the stud lock one other time on the spec bump and the speed bump. But once I go over that safety mechanism for the tab, you'll probably understand why they never used it again. But we'll go over some ergos real quick. So for it being a small knife, the Mini Mojito is actually surprisingly comfortable. The ergonomics are pretty good. On the handle, it's got this deep finger groove, so your index can kind of lock in place. And then with the flipper tab, it provides that little bit of a guard. And then this bump on the bottom just kind of helps separate your fingers so they can all find their place to sit. And since the knife is small and the handle is small, I only get about 3.5 of my fingers on there. My pinky kind of rests on this bottom notch or bottom curve. But even then, it's still really comfortable. I can still get a good grip, and then with the jimping, everything feels really solid. And then again, with that jimping up here on the top of the blade, if I need to do those precise cuts, I can get in there. But for it being a small handle, it's well designed, and it's very easy to grasp and just very comfortable. So not too bad when it comes to ergos. But yeah, like I said, you're only gonna get about 3.5 fingers if you do have larger hands. So that's kind of something to consider if you are gonna get smaller knives. But this curve up here also helps for the ergonomics. It kind of sits into this notch in your hand, or this ridge, so that everything kind of locks in place. Everything feels real good. It's solid, it's comfortable. And this little Patcher G10, it looks good, but I mean, to me it's only like useful as far as the stacks go. It's really slippery, So I don't really see it being that useful because of that lack of texture. Um, it's not really that grippy for these fingers to anchor on, but it does give the handle a little bit of flair, so I still like it anyways. And then we'll go over the stud lock. Just it's a very interesting design characteristic on the knife. It's a very simple mechanism, but even then, it provides a strong and secure way to keep the blade open, and it's very reliable while being very easy to disengage. You just push that forward to get around that cutout, and then you can close the knife. So very simple, but again very sturdy. I don't have any play side to side, up or down, but something that you do need to kind of watch for when you have a knife with the stud lock is up and down play. They are prone to getting that, but luckily for me, my knife hasn't had any issues. Since it's not a frame locker, liner lock, you don't have, that lock bar resting against the tang to keep it from moving up or down. So, that's something that can happen. But my knife has been good. Haven't had any problems. So I guess I'm just lucky to have a reliable one, well built by Kershaw. Um, but yeah, I like this mechanism. It's interesting, but I think they kind of realized that there's other ways, better ways to keep the knife open, and that's probably why they only used it that one other time. Plus, there's a big contradiction when it comes to these stud locks that I'll mention after I go over the safety flipper tab. So as far as that flipper tab, as far as the safety goes, it's pretty interesting too. This mechanism is very simple as well. Um, Again, you gotta pull down on it before you engage the flipper tab. And as you see, the safety kind of sits a little bit higher than the flipper tab. So you have to push down on it to unlock it before you can open it. So if you don't do that, the knife won't engage. And the way this mechanism works, it's very easy. My camera's not the best, so you probably won't be able to see it. But if you can kind of see that hole or that little cutout notch on the stopping pin, well, that's where the flipper safety locks into. It's got this little hook, so as it comes up, you can kind of see it raise. I don't know if you can see it moving. It's very subtle. And then it locks in place. So, very simple mechanism, but it's still reliable, still works very well, and it keeps the blade closed. So again, if I don't engage it, I won't be able to open it. But when it comes to flipper knives, it's very natural for the user to just put their whole finger on the flipper tab and push it. So it's not something that you're really consciously thinking about when you open this knife. It's something you're gonna do anyways. But still pretty cool, pretty unique. But I think one of the reasons they never used it again is because it's just not really that necessary. And then something that I kind of see as a problem when it comes to this knife and the unique mechanisms that it has are the fact that they actually work against each other. They contradict each other in their design, or just this knife in general. So the stud lock and the flipper tab safety, they're both cool, they're unique, but like I said, their functions just seem to work against each other, which is probably why, you've never seen them use this combination again, or just the safety tab again. It's just more of a hindrance. And then the reason they contradict each other, and it's not so much the stud lock that's the contradiction here, it's the thumb studs. So, if you're using a thumb stud knife, you're expecting to be able to use the thumb studs to open the knife. But you can't because of that safety mechanism keeping it closed. I'll push on the thumb studs all I want, and it's not going to open unless I, you know, push down on that safety mechanism and then the flipper. So the flipper is the only way I can open this knife, which kind of makes the thumb studs pointless. But you need those thumb studs because the locking mechanism is a stud lock. So, you're introducing a mechanism that's pretty cool, but you're limiting one of its functions to introduce another mechanism that isn't really necessary. So even though it's cool, it's just, to me, it's not very smart to limit a function like that. Again, especially if it's not necessary in the first place. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me on a stud locking knife. But it's something they did. But again, that's probably why they never did it again. But I mean, as far as pros go, I do like each one of the mechanisms. It's just as far as cons go, they don't work in tandem together. Um, you can get rid of that safety for the flipper tab, and this knife would be perfectly okay, since you can just use the thumb studs to open it, or you can just get rid of the stud lock mechanism and use the safety. But again, the safety is just not really a necessary thing. But it's got a coolness factor. It's just not the most practical. But at the end of the day, I really do like this knife. It's very cool, very interesting. Um, it's, a nice little piece. They're pretty rare. You don't see them too often. So I do like it. Really love its design. I love that blade, even though it's gonna be difficult to sharpen. But it's a cool little piece. But yeah, that's all I got for today. Please like and subscribe, and also let me know how I'm doing on my reviews. I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to make my reviews more interesting. I'm trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. My reviews are getting longer, but longer videos don't always necessarily mean better. So if you can, please leave a comment. Just give me some criticism. Tell me how I'm doing. But anyways, thank you, and again, please like and subscribe, and have a good one. Later, guys.